forward.
That sounds great. So let's get started. The theme of the conference is efficient growth.
And Eric, doesn't it feel like in tech these days, we're just hearing constantly about the requirement to continue to drive revenue growth and achieve cost efficiencies? But if we zoom out for a minute, tech is not unique. The world faces a similar problem with food production and population growth. It is estimated that by 2050, worldwide food production will need to increase between 70 and 100%. Yes, 100%. But clearing more and more land for farming just isn't feasible because there's not much more suitable land still available. So in the agriculture sector, there's an absolute necessity to drive both growth and efficiency, to produce more, but not by using more resources, more land, more water, more fertilizers, but to increase output using the same resources or even less. And that dynamic in India is especially challenging, with inefficiencies across the agriculture sector, starting with the fact that the average farm size, is 2.5 acres. So can you imagine how hard it is for these small farmers? They try to increase their revenue by planting single crops, but this leaves them vulnerable to pests and to weather. They try to produce more out of the land by using pesticides, but that actually eats into their profit margins and depletes the land. Not only are their prospects for growth pretty tenuous, just achieving a steady, predictable income is incredibly difficult. Now, along comes a new model from a company called Farmazin, and the founder actually came out of the tech industry. Farmazin enables the farmers with a new model, starting by targeting an ideal customer profile, the urban consumer who prefers and is willing to pay more for natural and organic food. By targeting that consumer, this enables the farmers to align their incentives to practice regenerative farming. And it enables more cost-efficient routes to that buyer because they're clustered in urban areas. And it allows the farmer to bypass big retailers through a direct-to-consumer model. We need a similar model in tech, one that fosters growth, but does so in a way that's efficient and sustainable over the long term.
That's right. Just like in agriculture, providers in the tech industry must grow year after year. Even now, in the most challenging macro environment we've seen in a long time, growth is essential. Several months ago, Gartner surveyed leaders of tech companies to understand their growth expectations for 2023. 72% said even now they are planning to grow. And by the way, most of the others are expecting to at least maintain their revenue performance from last year. 72%. Is there really so much optimism in the tech industry? I don't think so. These targets are a necessity. Even in this environment, the growth pressure from investors and shareholders remains, and that pressure flows right down to the revenue teams, to the marketing teams, to the product teams who are doing the work. So, what are tech companies doing in this environment to enable the growth? Well, I can tell you for sure what they're not doing. For most of you, growth is not going to be driven by increased investment. More than 80% of the leaders we surveyed have cut or plan to cut resources. More than 80% have slowed down or frozen hiring, and more than 80% have reduced their marketing spend. These cuts are affecting both startups and large established vendors. Across the spectrum, almost all tech professionals are dealing with limitations on their resources and cuts to their budgets. And we can see what's happening in the news headlines also. Announcements of round after round of cuts and layoffs. And often in the very same sentence, we hear a certain word repeated over and over. Efficiency. Efficiency. The word has a negative connotation now, doesn't it? When you hear it, it's hard not to equate the word efficiency with layoffs. But in those news articles and press releases and leaked internal memos, the word efficiency is being used in the wrong way. Layoffs can help cut costs, but cutting costs alone does not automatically lead to greater efficiency. What efficiency should mean, well, what efficiency actually does mean, is output divided by input. Efficiency is not about getting by with fewer people, with everyone having to work harder. Greater efficiency demands that we do things differently. Greater efficiency demands that we find new strategies and new approaches to raise the output per unit of input. In agriculture, efficiency doesn't mean squeezing the most you can out of the land. Efficient agriculture means using methods that minimize waste and maximize sustainability. For tech providers, efficiency means focusing on the highest return customers, the highest return products, and the highest return strategies.
In today's session, we're going to share a new model of efficient growth. We will outline 6 building blocks in that model to allow you to prioritize your efforts across product, marketing, and sales, not by using more resources, but by leveraging what you've already got in place. The first 3 elements of the model are approaches you can use to efficiently nurture growth from new buyers. The next 3 elements of the model are approaches to efficiently cultivate growth, this time from your existing base. And finally, we'll close with how to harvest efficiencies in an enterprise-wide operating model.
For most tech providers, acquiring new customers is the primary route to growing revenue. So let's begin with how to efficiently nurture new buying. The path to efficiency starts with understanding how buyers operate, how buyers make decisions. And that has changed over the last several years. The changes accelerated during the pandemic, and even now, tech buying continues to evolve. Gartner has published extensive research on tech buying behavior. I want to highlight just 3 of the most impactful changes today. The first is something we call the democratization of technology. What this term means is a shift in IT responsibility and IT knowledge to outside the IT organization. Technology users have more influence than ever before on tech buying. Next, decision-making has become federated. The stakeholders involved in tech purchases are distributed across the organization. For the majority of purchases, there's not just one person or one team operating independently. We have multiple budget holders coming together to make a decision. And because the stakeholders are federated, the decision-making is more difficult. It's difficult to get the buyers aligned to make a decision or to make any decision at all. And third, buying teams are large, with a lot of stakeholders who are only occasionally involved in tech buying. Because they're only occasionally involved, they're often inexperienced at buying. And to be frank, they're often ineffective. For tech purchases of less than $1 million, the average buying team now has 12 participants, with 2 to 3 business functions typically represented. These occasional decision makers are often not very skilled at analyzing their own needs or priorities or at evaluating their options. And as a result, they can really slow things down. So if we look at these changes taken together, a traditional go-to-market approach can be very inefficient. It can require a lot of resources and a lot of patience to see results. So what would be more efficient? Well, for many tech providers, the answer has been to go digital. There's been a lot of investment in digital tools and self-service buying. And why not? That is what buyers say they want. In a Gartner survey of B2B technology buyers, 74% said, "I prefer a rep-free sales experience." You heard that right. If given the option, 74% of buyers would rather not talk to your sales team at all. But hang on a second, we have to be careful. It's not that simple. Digital buying is attractive, but it's not always more efficient. Although buyers say that they want to buy digitally, it does not, on average, lead to faster sales cycles. When we surveyed buyers about what shortened the time they needed to make a decision, digital and self-service were actually near the bottom of the list. In addition, those customers that said they prefer a rep-free sales experience had a 23% more likely chance of buyer regret, a 23% higher chance of making a bad decision, a decision that does not lead to a long-term profitable partnership between the customer and the vendor. So to recap, self-service buying does not accelerate sales cycles, and it has a higher probability of leading to purchase regret. So what is the answer? Augmented digital. And augmented digital is our first building block for efficiently nurturing new buying. What augmented digital means is digital first, but not digital only. It means using your sales professionals at the precise points in the buyer's journey where they can have the most impact to guide buyers, to build buyers' confidence, and to validate buyers' decision-making. An example of a vendor who has implemented an augmented digital strategy is Worldwide Technology, or WWT. They're a tech reseller and integrator with nearly $12 billion in annual revenue. WWT has innovation labs where they can work together with customers and partners to architect and test integrated solutions. In the past, if a buying team wanted to visit or take advantage of an innovation lab, they had to fly to St. Louis or another innovation lab location. Now, although these visits were highly effective at increasing alignment among buying teams and allowing the buying teams to validate solutions before they finalized the purchase, the interactions were high effort and very expensive. So WWT has been working to digitize the lab experience. For example, if a buying team wants to test new technologies or try out a new solution, they can now do that through an on-demand virtual lab. In addition, the buyers have access to a library of research, events, webinars, and special interest communities. Augmented digital is a core part of WWT's go-to-market approach. They've found great success in aligning buying teams, in speeding buying team decision-making, and in providing every member of the buying team with a way to explore and engage with their solutions. The ecosystem already has 6,000 monthly active users, and they expect that usage to double in the next year. Another great example of an augmented digital strategy comes from Coupa Software. Coupa is a technology platform for business spend management. Now, Coupa has been in high growth mode for the last several years, and that growth has put a steady increase in demand on the pre-sales team. So instead of just hiring more team members for pre-sales, Coupa was looking for a way to scale by lifting the effectiveness and efficiency of pre-sales. So Coupa implemented a digital buyer enablement solution using a platform called Consensus. This platform takes inputs from a prospect and generates a self-service buying experience with the content that's most relevant for that prospect. The sales team found great success in being able to direct prospects to these digital experiences. And they found that by weaving together the digital experiences with traditional sales interactions, they could speed buying team alignment and decision making. In fact, they were able to reduce buying cycle time by 29%. Our next building block is product-led growth, or PLG. Now, product-led growth is about driving the adoption and purchase and expansion by engaging users directly with the product. Instead of simply talking about the product or describing a product's features and benefits, PLG is about letting users experience the product firsthand. The PLG philosophy is that if you have a great product, letting users see it, letting users use the product is an invaluable tool for growth. Our buyer research indicates that younger buyers, particularly those in Generation Z, are highly skeptical of product messaging. In fact, they're highly skeptical of any sales and marketing claims. PLG is effective for this type of buyer because it allows the product to speak for itself. In a traditional B2B technology sales motion, a seller engages the buyer in a discussion about the product's value. And for many products, this is the way it has to be. This motion cannot be replaced with PLG because the buyer is never going to be a user of the product. But for this type of sales motion, PLG can be used to supplement or enhance sales by engaging with the actual users, who then can validate the solution and influence the buyer to move forward with confidence. You see, PLG doesn't have to mean fully self-service. It's not an all-or-nothing proposition. It's applicable to a broad spectrum of products. And in fact, we believe that eventually every tech provider is going to adopt PLG in some form. Specifically for SaaS providers, Gartner has predicted that by 2025, 90% will have made a PLG a standard component of their go-to-market approach. Our final building block is digital marketplaces. And what we mean here specifically is listing your offerings on another provider's marketplace. Some of the largest examples are the marketplaces hosted by AWS, Azure, and Google. Marketplaces are really the ideal tool for adapting to the new tech buying behavior. For inexperienced buyers who prefer a self-service approach, marketplaces allow them to identify solutions and explore products without having to speak with a salesperson. And because they're connecting the buyer and seller through a trusted intermediary, marketplaces can help address the buyer skepticism issues that can slow down or derail sales processes. Buyers go through a journey with a vendor leading to a purchase. It's a journey of exploration, evaluation, and engagement. Marketplaces are most powerful for the exploration phase. driving awareness, and enabling discovery. In our surveys of buyers who recently selected a product, 9% said they initially identified the product through an online marketplace. Now that 9% may not seem like a large number, but that's compared to only 4% who identified the product by reading an article or by attending an event. Marketplaces are also very effective for the engagement phase, for enabling transactions, collecting payment, and provisioning. But in the evaluation phase, human seller engagement is often still required. If buyers do not get an interaction from a human seller during the evaluation phase, they're much more likely to regret their purchase. And so marketplaces should not necessarily be thought of as a replacement for your human sales team, but they can be a very efficient part of a hybrid human-digital sales motion. A successful example of a marketplace comes from Snowflake, the data cloud platform provider. The Snowflake marketplace has 390 sellers offering 1,800 data products, applications, and related services. Now, the Snowflake marketplace, in fact, enables sellers to use a product-led growth approach. The sellers can configure the timing and duration of a free offer, and buyers can test a product and validate it before purchase. Snowflake provides the instrumentation so that sellers can understand who is using what and how often. And how efficient is that? Well, one seller reported that they were able to build and start monetizing a new data product in only one day. Augmented digital, product-led growth, and digital marketplaces. These are the three building blocks of the efficient growth model for nurturing new buying. Hopefully, for many of you, these are not brand new approaches. We're highlighting them today because they're an important part of an overall efficient growth strategy. But new buying is not the only opportunity for efficient growth, is it, Maria?
That's right. The next three building blocks we're going to cover in the model are approaches you can use to efficiently cultivate growth, this time from your existing customer base. And competition in the tech sector continues to intensify. In just 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, 11,000 new tech companies were founded. And yes, private equity and venture capital funding have slowed recently, but there's money still flowing into new disruptors. And that doesn't even count the number of vendors already competing against you. Did you know that there are over 584,000 to be exact, technology and service providers operating globally? That is an explosion of tech providers, and it means a lot of buyer choices, but there's also a lot of market noise. Okay, that is a scary picture. It is scary out there for you, the provider. Amidst all of that noise, it's getting harder and harder to differentiate yourself, right? Which is driving your customer acquisition costs higher and higher. Sales and marketing expense as a percentage of revenue grew from 35% to 40% just between 2020 and 2021. And like Godzilla, that expense is devouring your new customer revenue. Net, new logo acquisition is the single most expensive way for companies to generate revenue. But there is a more efficient path to growth, and it is from your very own customers. After all, for most of you, the majority of your leads are already coming from your base. In our 2023 update to Gartner's annual Tech Marketing Benchmark Survey, we asked the respondents, what proportion of their leads were coming from different sources. And on average, 62% were coming from the existing base. Now that's for companies with over 100 million in revenue, but even for smaller companies, almost half of their leads were also coming from the base. But there is one word of caution, because growth from your existing customers isn't automatic, and it's not guaranteed just because you're the incumbent. In our 2023 Tech Buyer Survey, customers told us that when it comes to new investments, even with existing providers, they're still doing their due diligence. 50% are going to evaluate alternatives against you. They go to the outside, they talk to other customers, peers, and analysts, and they invite users to test and assess the new functionality, and all of that takes a while, on average 7 months. So given that, how do we capitalize on that customer growth opportunity, but do so in a way that's efficient? And to do that, we need to leverage the next 3 building blocks in our model, starting with customer intelligence. Now, product usage and service engagement data, that already exists in your organization, right? But it's often tucked away, accessed only by product, maybe teams running managed services. Best case, it's being leveraged by your customer success teams. But it's such a key input into our growth equation. First, that data has to be systematically captured across all of your products and services. And next, it should actually be made accessible to all customer-facing teams, but also contextualized so they can understand it and act on it for specific use cases. But in our 2022 product management survey, 43%, less than half, of respondents said they even had embedded product analytics. Now, product usage is one really good example of customer intelligence. And we've got a great case study here from a large cloud compute and storage provider who, as part of their growth strategy, planned to migrate from a fixed rate to a consumption-based pricing model. Everything was looking great until they realized that one feature would actually drive up their hosting costs under the new model and eat away at their profit margins. So they inspected their product analytics using a solution called Pendo. And they were able to see that this one feature actually had very low usage, so they could take the decision to deprecate it with very little risk. Not only were they able to drive revenue under the new pricing model, they achieved cost savings between $600,000 and $700,000 a year. The next building block in our model to efficiently cultivate growth from your existing customers is what we call the connected solution portfolio. What do we mean by that? We mean being very intentional about connecting products and services together in ways that map to what we call growth pathways. And I'm showing examples here on the slide, and they're already familiar to all of you. Expand just means selling more of the same thing into the same buying center. Penetrate means selling the same solution but into a new buying team. And cross-sell and upsell are, of course, expansion strategies within the original buying team. So what do we mean by connecting the portfolio for expansion? We mean aligning your offerings in ways that map to specific growth pathways, the ones we just showed. So here's one example. To target the upsell pathway, you could design premium product and service tiers above your basic offering. Now, this really requires a pretty deep understanding of your customer's hierarchy of needs, so you can design the tiers to match their natural evolution curve. Another option is what we call the Better Together strategy. That targets the cross-sell growth pathway. Better Together means clicking products and services together in ways that allow you to more fully address an entire customer business process or workflow. Now, this requires investment in your back-end technology architecture, like having strong product and service integrations. And an example of a company that did that comes to us from Deloitte. Now, Deloitte used to have a very traditional, practice-centric approach when it came to its practices, from human capital management to strategic consulting to technology delivery. These were all separate practices. But to more fully address client issues and address them comprehensively, Deloitte needed to better connect its services together. To do that, they evolved from that siloed, solution-led approach to a multidisciplinary one that allows them to deliver services in an integrated way. Taking that approach allowed Deloitte to more efficiently leverage all of the existing capabilities in their portfolio, along with their suite of assets and alliance partners, to deliver all of this in a converged way. And that can span cyber expertise, design thinking, consulting, and tech delivery. And it fosters a bigger revenue opportunity. The third option to better connect the portfolio for expansion is through a smart bundling strategy. Now, I do not mean selling your customers things they don't need, but what we do mean is packaging products and services together in ways that fit a customer purpose. What do we mean by fit for purpose? So here's a good example from Cisco. Now, Cisco's services span a wide variety, from expert consulting to data and analytics, support and training. And rather than offer all of these services a la carte, Cisco packages them into comprehensive solution bundles that are offered at different levels. Each level is designed to meet the customer where they are in terms of their maturity and deliver a specific business outcome. So, going across the top, the level 1 bundle is designed to simplify the business of infrastructure management and deliver cost efficiencies as that business outcome. Level 2 is designed to optimize infrastructure management and drive tech adoption as an outcome. And level 3, which is coming next, is designed for more transformational outcomes, like operational excellence and business agility. So this bundling strategy simplifies the offerings for Cisco, and it saves customers money versus buying a la carte. Everything I just talked about comes to life when we take a more holistic approach to customer marketing. Now, you probably have random acts of customer marketing already happening in your organization. But we have so much more opportunity to drive growth when we bring all of those capabilities together, and we see it in the data. 69% of growth organizations report that they have a centralized and dedicated customer marketing function compared to 46% of non-growth organizations. So what do we mean by a centralized, holistic approach? We mean fusing all of the capabilities you see here on this slide together, starting at the top with customer experience and voice of customer insights, like your existing customer feedback data, your first-party data, your third-party intent data. That's the oxygen you need for the whole function. And it powers programs like ABM, or account-based marketing, which is a really efficient way to select and target those accounts with the most growth potential. But in a lot of organizations, customer marketing is limited to just that one slice, cross-sell and upsell campaigns. And you see those kind of generic campaigns all the time. You bought product A, you should also like product B. But that misses the bigger opportunity to foster growth by bringing all of those capabilities together, like TIBCO have done. So TIBCO is one business unit that's part of Cloud Software Group, where customer lifecycle marketing is centralized into a center of excellence, and it serves the whole organization, That in and of itself drives two structural efficiencies. One, as cloud software grew through acquisition, just having a centralized function allowed them to extend the best practices across all of the business units. And two, just not replicating customer marketing in every business unit gained efficiencies. The business units, on the other hand, are the experts at their customers and their technology. When I talked to the head of marketing at TIBCO, he explained it all starts with those VOC insights, what he called 100% quantitative foundation. And leveraging that foundation, he targets accounts in the base to educate them on what they've already bought, encouraging them to use more and spend more, to highlight new use cases that are possible by subscribing to additional products and by building relationships into new buying centers. So when we started this section, we started with a pretty scary prospect of ever-escalating customer acquisition costs. But we now know there's a more efficient path to growth through your own customers. Now, how do we bring all of this together into an enterprise-wide operating model? Over to you, Eric, to do just that.
Thank you, Maria. So, we've talked about nurturing new customer buying, and we've talked about cultivating growth from the base. But for most of you, it's not a question of which to pursue. You have to do both. So to fully harvest efficient growth, we have to bring together these building blocks and the teams who are responsible for them. On this journey, each of you is starting from a different place with different strategies and different initiatives already in place. You may have already started or may have already implemented some of these building blocks. But if you're near the beginning of your journey, we can suggest 3 paths, 3 options for getting started. The first option is to start with customer intelligence. For product companies, customer intelligence, and specifically product analytics, is the perfect place to kick off an efficient growth initiative because it's relatively easy to get started and you can see the impact quickly. For example, you can use customer intelligence to decide which features need more investment and which features are ready for deprecation. And building a strong foundation of customer intelligence can help jumpstart work on some of the other building blocks. One of those is the connected portfolio. When your team is armed with data about which capabilities are most useful to each customer segment, you can use that to refine your portfolio of offerings, to make them more appealing to new buyers and to entice existing customers to trade up. For example, you may find an opportunity to separate an offering into a standard and premium edition. Another building block that naturally flows from customer intelligence is product-led growth. In fact, a PLG strategy critically depends on customer intelligence, on understanding where the users are finding value and where there's too much friction in the customer journey.
The next building block is a great starting point for those of you who have a large embedded customer base. So let's talk about using your existing customer marketing capabilities. You already focus on cross-sell and upsell. And you definitely have advocacy marketing because you all have great case studies on your website. So when you think about marketing into the base, account-based marketing is a really effective way to begin tying those capabilities together and more. For example, start by making your cross-sell campaigns smarter by infusing those VOC insights like your customer feedback data paired with firmographics and intent data. How about including more revenue roles to participate in ABM who are actually focused on the base, like customer success? And expand your existing content marketing capabilities to develop assets that help existing customers adopt and realize value so they're primed to grow more with you. From there, you can activate augmented digital. Now, just creating more and more digital customer marketing content isn't an efficient way to work. But what would be efficient is leveraging those VOC insights to identify which accounts in the base have the best attributes for growth, and serving those accounts with targeted marketing content and programs over digital channels that is also orchestrated with sales motions that target a specific growth pathway. Now that's augmented digital. And speaking of growth pathways, we talked about being very intentional about aligning your offerings to map to specific growth paths. And VOC should alert you for specific customer situations that suggest a growth path. And from there, you can prompt them with an offering that is fit for that account's purpose.
The third option is to start with augmented digital. Now, this is a great option if you don't have a large existing customer base. You can begin by evaluating your buyer's journey, not with the intention of digitally orchestrating an entire end-to-end journey, but looking for ways to use digital tools in concert with sales interactions to enable buyers to make faster decisions and with more confidence. From there, you can move to product-led growth. Like augmented digital, product-led growth can help you shift parts of the buyer's journey away from more expensive human sales interactions. And then you can take the next step to digital marketplaces, especially for services offerings. Digital marketplaces can help you enable discovery by listing your offerings on one or more other providers' marketplaces. It can help drive awareness and top-of-the-funnel activity, and that can make your sales team more productive and more efficient. These 6 building blocks are independent, but as you can see, they complement and support each other. In a similar way, the teams in your organization, marketing, customer success, product, sales, these roles will find the most success in driving efficient growth collaboratively across functions.
Do you remember when we started this session? We talked about the fact that other sectors have been balancing the need for efficiency plus growth for a while. We highlighted the state of agriculture in India, where inefficiencies drive poor outcomes for farmers, an unhealthy product for the consumer, and is depleting the land. And then we talked about a new business and operating model, one that made both growth and efficiency possible together. A model that has a lot of attributes very familiar to us in tech, starting with an ICP, the high-value consumer who's willing to pay more for organic food, by activating new routes to that buyer with an online marketplace of providers, the farmers, and by enabling more cost-effective distribution channels to deliver product to that buyer. But it wasn't just about changing one thing, the shift to organic. That had to work in tandem with other aspects of the model, like identifying that ideal buyer and finding new routes to that buyer. And when it comes together, that enables sustainable revenue for the farmer. It's better for the consumer and it's better for the land. In tech, Gartner's model of efficient growth does the same thing. The 6 building blocks that we outlined today ideally all operate together and across functions to unlock maximum efficiency and generate the most growth momentum. The new model in tech, where efficiency and growth coexist, is better for you, the provider, delivers better experiences for our customers, and offers all of us a long-term, sustainable strategy for growth. Thank you.